Yo, what's up, everybody? It's We Talking About Sports.
Get
I'm
this guy back
Roland.
in
I'm
here.
joined by Ben and Ron. We're back with a little NFC West or divisional preview here with some UFC boys. Glad to be back. A lot's happened since we've been gone. Messi's on the MLS now. A bunch of big contracts have been signed in the NFL and the NBA. Running backs are holding out. A lot of stuff is going on, but we're here to break it down all with you guys. Ron, how are you feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm putting it on Facebook. So if y'all are on Facebook, we're about to share it right now. I'm putting getting the cobwebs out because that's definitely what we're doing right now. I was telling Roland off camera, it's been a minute, bro, since we potted, and I'm excited. A lot of stuff has happened in the sports world, but has it though? It's only been baseball. We usually like to cover football a lot. It's been a little boring, guys. I mean, what do you think? It's been baseball for the last month and a half. Baseball and UFC.
Yeah, you speaking of UFC, we have a big UFC card coming up this week, the second pay-per-view of the year. So yeah, man, looking forward to potting again. I know that we're going to be getting into some football finally. Those division breakdowns are going to be, coming out, pumping them out weekly. So looking forward to it. Fantasy football drafts around the corner and whatnot. So things are about to get into full swing.
Yeah, we
Yes,
do
sir, they
have those
are.
divisional breakdowns to come at you, and it's the NFC West that we're going to be breaking
Actually,
down first. This is a pretty interesting division. The past couple of years has been considered one of the stronger divisions. The Rams did win the Super Bowl. The 49ers have been pretty strong, and for the most part, the Seahawks up until Russell Wilson left, even though they did good last year, and the Cardinals have all been pretty good. But this year, not so much. If you can look at the odds there, plus 2,500 and plus 1,000 for the Cardinals and Rams respectively. So for that reason, we're not going to spend too much time on those guys. But last year, the 49ers did win the division, went on to lose to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. Yet again, in that NFC Championship game, lost to the Rams a year prior. And the 49ers are favored to repeat and win the division as shown above. Guys, is it as simple as the Rams are going to win this, or do you think the Seahawks and their improved offense, and they got some pieces on the defense coming back? What do you think about this division going into 2023?
take
Yeah,
it
the
away, Benny.
Rams are definitely not going to win it, Roland. I think you meant to say 49ers
Yeah,
there.
my bad.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's going to be we're only going to cover two teams for the most part. You see the plus 2,500 and the plus 1,000 on the Rams and the Cards. The Cards are projected in a lot of mock drafts to have the number one pick and also the number two pick as they own the Texans' first round pick. Due to that trade to get Will Anderson to the Texans. So this could be a tankathon year for the Cardinals. We know that they're off of Cliff Kingsbury. They bring in a new head coach, Kyler Murray. We know that there was some turmoil with that team. So the Cardinals are going to be one of those teams that I think that we're going to be betting on against a lot and maybe taking some overs with them as well. But I do think that this is the San Francisco 49ers division. I mean, it's going to go through them. The minus 160 odds, just based off what they did to the Seahawks both times last year. Yes, Geno Smith is a gunslinger, but these guys the pass rush is just a little too much. When they match up head to head, I think that this division 100% goes through the San Francisco 49ers. They do have a full season with CMC this year. Debo Samuels, I know I got a report today that the coach Shanahan has been saying that he's never gotten so many shirtless pics of a player before. That Debo Samuel's pretty eager to get back in this year and have a better season than last. I know he was a big letdown for a lot of fantasy owners last year after having, that career year that got him signed. So definitely do think that this division runs through the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, easily you can see 6-0 for the division for them. The minus 160 odds, actually surprised that it's not north of minus 200. But I think that that's because of the quarterback situation for the 49ers. That's going to be pretty much, the deciding factor of are they going to be that team that gets over that hump and actually, contends for the Super Bowl, or are they just going to run their division, beat the Cowboys in the playoffs, and then bow out?
What's up, Rick? Rick Rodriguez, I used to work with him at the post office, says teams with quarterbacks that stay in the pocket will continue to be dominant teams. Still no team with the running quarterback has won the Super Bowl. Boys, do we beg to differ there? I mean, do you consider Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts running quarterbacks? I do.
Yeah, they're fairly mobile guys.
Right?
I would say Mahomes is still that pocket passer, but he is mobile. Jalen Hurts more. I mean, that's, Rick, I kind of, I would like to have the mobile quarterback, mobile and passing quarterback. I think that's what's needed nowadays in the league. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson, but, that mixture like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen who can do both. So I tend to beg a differ on that one.
Yeah, and Ron, on the division, what are your thoughts going into this? Are you with Ben here thinking that the 49ers are going to run away with this, looking at a potential maybe 6-0 sweep of the division?
Yeah, man, I think so. Roland put a lot of work into this. He sent me over a lot of info. So we are going to get to the Cardinals and the Rams eventually. It's just today we'll start off with, the two top teams in the division. I mean, but when you look at the the Cardinals, man, it's Kyler Murray, James Conner, guys like Zach Pascal, Hollywood Brown, not huge names. So we didn't want to start off, the NFL show, with teams like that. We're going to get into them later, but for the most part, you guys are right. It's going to go into San Francisco, and that's who we are leading off with. So let's just go straight into it, man. Is it going to be a gold rush or a bust for the San Francisco 49ers, boys? I know you said they're going to kill it. They're going to do well. Roland, you can take us through all their stats for last year. And then there's a big question. I don't know if it's big or not, but we'll definitely touch that because the quarterback situation is kind of a little carousel going on right now up in Frisco, man.
Yeah, so, speaking of last year, it was – all good for San Francisco, 13-4. They had the addition of CMC that was really the boost that they were looking for offensively, and tore it up immediately upon, getting there in San Francisco. They did go 6-0 against the division last year. They swept everybody. As we mentioned earlier, they lost to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. They didn't have a lot of close games this past year. They won their games pretty handedly, 3-1 in close games. And this quarterback question may be answered a little bit already. I did get an update yesterday after I made this that Brock Purdy should be ready for camp and it should be ready to go and start taking those first team reps. So Sam Darnold might end up being just some insurance, but, good to know that Brock Purdy is also going to be ready to go for training camp.
Yeah, I saw that too, man. But I mean, was it going to be anybody besides Brock Purdy, Ben? I mean, Trey Lance is still there. Crazy to think that he's just kind of been on the back burner. What's your take on the quarterback situation there?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think Sam Darnold's gonna see any playing time, right?
No, I don't think Sam Darnold will see playing time. But as somebody who did punt on quarterback last year in some fantasy leagues and took a shot on Trey Lance, pretty disappointed last year. You got that bad taste in your mouth just because you depended on a player, he got injured, and when he was even in, he looked pretty lost. You are hearing things about him coming back better, more poised. He had that knee surgery or leg surgery, so it's Brock Purdy's job to lose. But let's not forget that they traded up for Trey Lance. They spent a pretty high pick on Trey Lance, so I don't think that they've given up on him. I know they were trying to trade him last year, the year prior, but I don't think that they've given up on him now that they know that he's staying with San Francisco for the most part. Brock Purdy is their guy based off what we saw last year, but I do expect Trey Lance to make some noise in camp and at least make it a QB competition for the Niners.
So you do think that there's going to be QB competition?
I do.
That's interesting. I think Brock Purdy is going to be the guy. I don't know. There's going to be so much of a competition. I don't know if Brock Purdy is going to have any bad games. I think it might just be rinse and repeat of last year. This is the same roster. You just got CMC. You're going to have him for a full season this year. He's the quarterback's best friend when you always have that immediate little dump off there, and you got George Kittle, and you already have the plethora of weapons. Don't need to go through all of them. But I do think Brock Purdy, this is his team if he's healthy. If he has some bad games, Gabe, to answer your question, who knows if Lance is even the guy to come in? What if it's Darnold? But I think he would have a decent, maybe 5 or 6 game leash. I mean, this is a team with championship aspirations, so you're not going to want to play any games. This is a team that they're in their window to win now. So, you're not playing any games. So the leash might be short, but I do think this is Brock Purdy's team going into week 1.
We're going to get into their schedule later, so we can remember Gabe's question. Gabe's watching us on a YouTube, man, so shout out to Gabe for watching us on YouTube. But we're going to get into their schedule later, so maybe we can kind of gauge, if the Niners have this record by this game, maybe this is the game where it's the Trey Lance game or something like that. So anything else that you guys want to touch on here before we go to some more 49er stats?
No, I mean, just really, I mean, this is a year for me for the 49ers. Let's see if they can get over the hump. They've gotten in the NFC Championship game a couple times, lost in the Super Bowl. All this with Jimmy Garoppolo, which, let's go to the next slide, which they are without Jimmy. He wasn't there last year. It was, the Brock Purdy show when he was out. So he's one of those key departures. Jimmy Ward left at safety that's been there with them for quite some time. And they lost Mike McGlinchey on the offensive line. The key addition, I had this up here just a laugh. It's just Clyde Farrell. He was the number 4 pick for the Raiders a couple of years ago. I don't know if you guys remember. He was the defensive end from Clemson. That got picked just out of nowhere. Nobody had him going in like the top 5, and the Raiders just came out of nowhere and just picked him. Well,
Raiders were like, we found a diamond in the rough. What a steal. He landed to us.
He must have been an end running a 4.4 40 or some shit.
Yeah, that's what the Raiders special right there. But, we did mention Sam Darnold coming in. I do think that's a pretty good, insurance policy. Do you guys see a world where Trey Lance is not a 49er?
Man,
going into
that's exactly what I was thinking, bro. I mean, you could see that, man. You could see a big name quarterback going down, or a team that has. I think last year you could see like when Matt Ryan was a starter, or just these older quarterbacks that aren't just doing anything, like a Marcus Mariota situation. I mean, I know they had Ritter there, but to the teams that don't have solid backups, like let's go to the Colts again. Matt Ryan went down. Ellinger isn't the guy. I mean, could you do something and see Trey Lance that has been in the league already, several years? He's been in a good system. He's learned from a great coach. I could see that happening. I could see him leaving the 49ers, especially with Sam Darnold being there. So you have Sam Darnold, you have Brock Purdy. Trey Lance might not be a 49er this whole entire year.
Yeah, I think that the 49ers are going to be a team we want to bet on in the preseason if you're that degenerate to be taking preseason football. But if we're going to be rotating, I don't know if Brock Purdy's going to be ready to go, but if Trey Lance is going to be trying to figure things out in the preseason, and then you're going to have Darnold coming in behind him, I mean, the offense for the most part is going to be at least pretty structured, or at least have a high ceiling. If he balls out in the preseason, maybe some team trades a draft pick for him and the 49ers let him go. But for the most part, I expect there to be some QB competition. Let's not forget Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. They traded up. They mortgaged some of the future to get Trey Lance, albeit they drafted both of them in that same draft. But I don't think that they've quit on Trey Lance because he's still on the team. And like I said, they shopped him around last year, and those are like obviously signs of kind of giving up on a player. But he's there. Good. You're hearing good things out of the summer workouts that they're having. So I do expect the quarterback competition, and I expect them to be a 49er.
Okay. So two different opinions there, but can definitely see routes to both being true at the end of the day when it comes to Trey Lance, because that draft capital does mean something. I mean, you drafted the guy number 3, so definitely see what Ben's saying there.
You can't just do the James Wiseman on him. You know what I mean?
I feel you. Yeah. You drafted the guy number 3. That's some guys lose their jobs over a miss like that potentially. So yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. In terms
of drafts, man, this is gonna transition us. Go ahead.
In terms of the draft, they didn't have that first round pick or second round because I think they mortgaged that for to get Trey Lance, and maybe some of that was involved in the Christian McCaffrey deal that just went down. So they did have a third round pick, mainly address some stuff on the defense. See a tight end there. Really not too much to address here, but they did have, a pretty full draft, even though they didn't have a first and a second round pick. And, the 49ers are always looking to add guys that are, able to instantly contribute to their team. So anything here that you guys like to point out?
It's tough, man. When you start drafting in the third round, you're talking about 64 of the top best players gone, and I think it says here number 87. 86 of the best players are gone. But do you really need to have a great draft with the team that you have on the field already? Not too many guys left. We saw their departures on the previous page. They're a stacked team. Their coaching staff is great. They're playing a great system. They showed out last year, so I'm not too worried that they didn't draft to the 3rd round and from pick 87.
Bro, they took a kicker in the 3rd round. That's kind of got to hurt.
Jake Moody
out of Penn State University. So, I mean, yeah, we'll see that. Like you said, no 1st or 2nd round pick. Obviously, that comes with that Trey Lance pick and the CMC trade. But they're a team that just kind of needs to reload. They just need depth. I think the starters are pretty much solidified. So for them, it's all about just getting over that hump, like you talked about, rolling in the playoffs. Are they going to get out over that NFC Championship and get into the Super Bowl and have the quarterback that they're confident enough to win it?
Yeah, and let's look at their 2023 outlook for the year. Let's look at their schedule. Let's see what they got out in front of them. And right off the bat, they got the Steelers on the road. That's never easy, but the
10
Steelers are still kind of on the come up. And then you got a divisional game with the Rams, Giants, Cardinals, Cowboys sprinkled in there. In terms of strength of schedule, though, this is the 5th ranked in terms of 2022 win percentage when it comes to the toughness. I just saw the stat down there. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not easy sledding here with the Rams. You see they got a matchup with the Bengals there. Jaguars are supposed to be pretty tough this year. So really no easy weeks for these guys. Any concern when looking at this schedule, or do you still think that, hey, they got Kyle Shanahan, one of the best coaches in the league. He's going to have them ready to go every week, and they still have one of the best rosters from top to bottom.
Take it over. Take this,
yeah,
because I know you got something to say.
I mean, yeah, like they're going to be one of the more well-coached teams. They're going to be favorites in a lot of these games, although like they're a division winner, so they're playing all the division winners for the most part. They get lucky playing the Bucs because they're going to be that team with Baker Mayfield, but they won the division last year.
Mm-hmm.
So albeit, but that little run right there of the Vikings, the Jaguars, the Eagles, the Ravens, I think that's going to tell us. I think they have to find their quarterback, like Ron said. What's the schedule going to look like? When do we say that Trey Lance possibly comes in or whatever? I think that in that 4-game stretch, including the Steelers, on the road, Steelers, we know that they have a good defense, but that stretch, in those first 6 games, I think we're going to know who their quarterback is, because to me, that's the toughest stretch of their season right there.
Mm-hmm.
With the Vikings, the Jags, the Eagles, and then the Ravens. So I think after that we find out who their QB is going to be. If it's going to be Purdy or Lance.
Give me, like I said, I'm just making my assumption based off of Purdy is going to come in and either be what he was before he injured his shoulder, or he's improving upon that. Which I'm really not going to go based off of anything else other than that when I'm making this projection. But give me 12-5, best case scenario for these 49ers here. Because if I'm being honest, and like I said, if Brock Purdy comes in and everything's humming, I can see 6-0 right off the bat. I think they can take out the.
That's tough.
They can take out the Rams, the Giants. A lot of people are expecting them to be down this year, kind of come back down to earth, and see Daniel Jones kind of regress to the mean. Cardinals, we already discussed them being bad. The 49ers, they've owned the Cowboys. And
I think Ben was seeing the schedule the other. You're seeing it up and down, right?
Bro, I was like, damn, that's a tough stretch.
Yeah, because I was like, shit. I was like, Vikings, Jaguars, Eagles. That's week 7, 10, 13, and 16.
Bad.
But it's going the other way, Pap. It's okay. So, hey, you were at the river. Shout out to the boys that you were floating the river with today. Hey, you were having a good time. You're on vacation.
Exactly.
Just like I said in the Facebook post. We're getting the cobwebs out right now, Pap. We're getting the cobwebs out. So, hey, take it easy.
So I can see 6-0 just with the end of that Brown streak. And then you get into the Vikings and Bengals. You get to your bye. I can see them beating the Jags, Bucks. Maybe you lose that game in Seattle, lose that game in Philly, then split the series with Seattle ultimately. Beat the Cardinals, can see them beating the Ravens and the Commanders. So yeah, I see 12-5 here.
Do you know what the over/under is on their season win total, Roland?
We have it.
Yeah, it's 10.5. Yeah, we're gonna get it to I want to say it's 10.5, but yeah, it should be. It is on the next slide. They went 13-4 last year, boys. So I could see that,
10.5.
you know, definitely, you know, again, and their games, their tough games are kind of mixed in with some, you know, crappy games. Off the bye, they have a tough game at the Jaguars. Say they lose, they get the Bucks, and then they get the Seahawks. And then you play the Eagles, which is a tough game, but then you get the Seahawks again and the Cardinals. You know, then you get touched by the Ravens, but then, you have the Commanders and the Rams to end the year. I think their schedule is super set for them to make a decision on the quarterback situation into the bye week, because the bye week happens week 9. That's exactly in the middle of your season, and you're gonna know, man, who's gonna be the quarterback for the rest of the way. I've never seen a quarterback change in week 14, 15, 13, at least that I can remember of. So week 9 is perfect for any future decisions that you're gonna have in the second half of your season. Roland, you're extremely right. I could see them go 6-0. You know, then they have a tough week 7 and 8. I don't see any slowing down for these 49ers, man. I'm on 12 or 13 wins also.
Is it a bigger QB question this year because of the Purdy injury than it was last year, going in knowing Trey Lance was the QB, or was it a bigger question mark last year?
I think it's just a bigger question because of the Purdy injury. I think that's the only reason why we're having this discussion right now. If he's not hurt, I mean, who knows what happens in that NFC Championship game against the Eagles? You know, I mean, that's the other thing I was thinking about. Even with, you know, Josh Johnson going in there, and then whoever else they got to throw for them after he got hurt, you know, the 49ers were, I mean, the Eagles weren't running all over the 49ers, you know, like maybe the Eagles took their foot off the gas a little bit, but, you know, the 49ers did not, you know, get the brakes beat off of them in that game. It just leads me to believe that if Brock Purdy were there, or maybe even if they had Sam Darnold in the situation, that, you know, they would have been good to go.
Roland,
Just saying.
I mean, we could have seen Brock Purdy as the second rookie quarterback to win the Super Bowl.
I'll tell you one thing. We've said Sam Darnold's name too many times already for this podcast. In 22 minutes, we've already said it too many times.
All right. Well, that was the schedule, and you guys touched on it. So all the players that you get, the departures, you know, your draft, you see your schedule, and it all sets up for what you think is going to happen. The odds, the season bet for the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship, the wins, and the NFC West, which I missed there, but it's minus, I think it was, boys.
Yeah. I like them here. I like their win total, probably out of everything on the board. To win the Super Bowl, man, I don't know if I can get there yet with the 49ers. I need to see the season play out, but I do like that 10.5.
Yeah, I mean, and considering how we talked about last year, they swept their division. This year, the division is weaker than I think it was last year. Mm-hmm. So say that they sweep the division again, that's 6 wins. You're just looking to win, you know, 5 more. They do play the Cowboys division, so it will be, you know, one of the tougher divisions in football that they're matching up against. But it looks very doable, minus 140, a little bit of juice. Ron said to win the NFC West, minus 160. I think if you take either one, you're all right. Obviously, a pretty square play. But, I mean, it's championship or bust for the 49ers. That's the type of team that we're talking about here. I think that's the only team in this division that is championship or bust as well. So, over 10.5 to win the NFC West, I think either one's good.
I kind of want to touch on that NFC Championship. I mean, is it them or the Eagles just like last year? Is any NFC team sorry, I might be breaking up. I need to plug in my charger.
I thought you were a Cowboys fan. Is it them or the Eagles?
I am. But, I mean, realistically, man, I mean, let's just call it what it is. Is it the 2-team race for the NFC Championship?
Realistically speaking, I would say so. I think these 2 rosters are head and shoulders above all the other teams in the NFC at this point. You know, they just have that big question mark at quarterback right now because, you know, it's Brock Purdy coming off that injury. What's he going to be? But like Gabe said here in the comments, if Dallas can, you know, maybe throw their name into the ring, you know, you also got the Lions there. But can you really expect the Lions and what they did last year to continue to build off of that? I know a lot of people are expecting that. Then the Vikings, how fluky that was. We'll get to that in the NFC North. But yeah, it's either Philadelphia or San Francisco at this point, unless Dak can save the day, and start not throwing interceptions. We'll see.
By week 2 or week 3, Roland
Let's
will
wait
be
for the
on
NFC
board.
East.
Yeah, probably.
Let's wait till our NFC East show to see what's up. But I just meant like plus 425. I mean, might as well just take it now, because this is the best chance that you're gonna get. Once they go 5-0, 4-0, 6-1, whatever it is, these odds are gonna drop, obviously. So if you're looking at 425, you want to take a gamble, do it now, man.
Yeah, and I mean, like somebody said in the comments too, that it'll be a rematch, or I don't know if it was Roland, but if you think that that's the case, whenever they do match up against the Eagles in the playoffs, let's say that they even have home field or they don't have home field, you're not going to get plus 425. So if you think that it is a 2-team race, might as well bet the plus 425. And then once they get to that game, if they do against the Eagles, if it's in San Francisco, you're probably looking at something around Pick'em, maybe San Fran by a point or two. And if it's in Philly, you're probably looking at Philly by 3 or 4, maybe a little bit less. So, but you're not getting 425 the rest of the season for NFC champs, as long as the quarterback situation, is mediocre. It doesn't even have to be, crazy good, just mediocre.
If Purdy's a quarterback, you take that. If Lance is a quarterback, you take that. Week 1,
I don't know
quarterbacks
if
go down, and Sam Darnold gets the start from week 3 on. Are you happy with your plus 425?
I don't know if you take it if Lance is a quarterback either. I mean, they're a good all-around team, but Lance hasn't shown us anything to say that he's second favorite to win the whole, NFC.
All right. Well, this is the very last portion of the San Francisco, which is, I know you guys love the most.
Fantasy football. One of the more fantasy-friendly teams in the past couple of years. Always produce a couple of players on offense that you can rely on. Maybe even throw in Brock Purdy in there every once in a while last year and get lucky, because he did have some pretty good games. Don't know if anybody in this chat did that. But right off the top, you got CMC, RB1, maybe player 1, depending on your thought process there at the top of the draft. George Kittle, perennial top 5, top 3 tight end, really, but this year coming in at tight end 5. This is all per ESPN PPR rankings. And then you got Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, a great duo, wide receiver 17 and wide receiver 34 coming into the year. Deebo, a little bit of a drop-off. I was looking last year. I think he was something like wide receiver 9.
He was top 10, bro. This is value.
A little bit of a drop-off. So maybe this does present some value for Deebo. And Ben, I'll let you take it there. Are you looking straight at this board and looking at getting Deebo back on your squad?
I didn't have Deebo last year, so I don't have that, hate for him. And hate might be a strong word, but, like that dislike for him based off what he did last year, because last year you were spending a second-round pick on him, and he didn't do much all year. So now you get him here at wide receiver 17, which probably means you're taking him in the 3rd round, early 4th round. I mean, that's a lot of value for a guy like Deebo. And we don't expect them to use him at running back anymore. I think we can all agree there, or maybe you all do think that he takes some snaps. But I think it's going to be, if anything, 1 or 2 jet sweeps a game. Now with CMC there, I think that he has lost his running back value. And with him losing his running back value, I think that also moves him down in the wide receiver rankings, because that's what was last year going into the season. There was no CMC in San Francisco. So the running back value was being played in to a part when you were drafting Deebo last year. This year, I think he's a value pick, bro. I really like him. What I want to say is, if you have the number 1 pick, are you taking CMC or are you passing?
Should have I have the number 1 pick this year, I'd probably take CMC. And the only reason why is because I buy into the theory that Justin Jefferson set the record last year, right? For what he broke Cooper Kupp's record. I don't think that he can go up again. So I'm already expecting Justin Jefferson to fall off a little bit from last year. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust, but I'm not betting on him to recreate his year again, especially when I think that the Vikings are going to be down a little bit. So I would go CMC, because those are the 2 guys I'm thinking about at 1 this year.
Yeah, man, I've always been a running back first guy. I know the fantasy league has been changing into wide receiver, 1st round, 2nd round, whatever. Some guys punt. I think, Ben, you did that, right? I think you took like wide receivers the first 3-4 rounds
Yeah.
even. But if it's CMC, man, this guy has done nothing but prove that he is a starting running back, first round pick. He came off the injury. He went to a new team, and guess what? He just made everybody look silly. And from the pass catching ability too. I know there was a lot of plays last year where he gets those little dump offs. He can score. Everybody knows it. There's nothing that I'm going to say that nobody knows. He's clearly a number 1 overall pick. If I'm the number 1 overall pick, he's my guy. I'm taking him, and hopefully he can repeat what he did last year.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him go number 2 last year. Consensus, Jonathan Taylor was the number 1 pretty much on everybody's board. CMC gets his spot back, and I think obviously most of it's due to the trade to San Francisco. We know what Shanahan likes to do and how productive running backs are in his system. With the quarterback, question mark, that's even more reason to take CMC, right? These quarterbacks, they're not going to mind dumping it off behind the line of scrimmage and letting CMC do his thing for, 5, 10, 15 hard-earned yards. So I do think that his value is RB1. I would take him at RB1 as well. I know Roland talked about Jefferson. It's tough up there, man, to take a wide receiver number 1 overall as well. I think CMC might be the only guy that you can take over him right now. Cooper Kupp, obviously, with the injury and stuff, but give me CMC as well. I would take him overall number 1. As far as George Kittle, I think that we can close out with this. Guys like Hawkinson have passed him up in ESPN's rankings. I'm not sure if you all agree with all that stuff, but we saw George Kittle, pretty much not pay off all season, and then the playoff run came. And if you were lucky enough to have George Kittle on your playoff team last year in fantasy football, you cashed in big time because he was scoring week after week. So are you all still okay with taking George Kittle, maybe 5th or 6th round as your tight end 1?
Not this year. Not this year. I don't think I'm gonna spend on George Kittle at tight end this year.
Would you be willing to take somebody like Dallas Goedert over George Kittle, Roland?
No,
I would.
Honestly, not this year. I really haven't projected myself taking a tight end early in any of my mocks. So,
Punting tight end, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen like the Dawson Knoxes of the world come up out of nowhere. Who else was like a tight end?
Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts. I mean, big name though, so he was probably gonna go early, but I think you can kind of punt. The Gronks and the Kelseys, we've just realized that those are
unicorns.
I mean, a diamond in the rough, bro. Those are never gonna come around again. So you can kind of punt. You can even stream some tight ends. Tight ends is very funny. Like they usually have like two games, 3 games, like streaky, and then they just fall off. So you could find somebody, a tight end to kind of replace it, and you want to get wide receivers, bro. So if it's 5th round, you only have two running backs maybe and 2 receivers already. You're not gonna go for George Kittle when there's other receivers out there. Yeah, I mean, who knows? You might want to get a mobile quarterback, 5th round. I know some guys wait a lot, but there are some guys who say, no, I want one of the top quarterbacks. I want the Jalen Hurtses of the world, somebody who's going to give me a lot of points. So you could go a Jalen Hurts or a George Kittle. I think you got to go Hurts.
All right. Well, that's all I got for fantasy for the 49ers. Another really good fantasy football team, though, that we're going to be getting into is the Seattle Seahawks, man.
Yeah, let's ride them. I don't know who this is, but shout out to Sunglasses MMA. What's up, boys? What's up, bro? We're going to get into UFC right after the Seattle Seahawks. So if you want to stick around and watch, you're more than welcome to.
Hey, good thing he's got sunglasses in his YouTube pic. Hey, Sunglasses MMA.
That's Khabib. It looks like Khabib, right?
I don't know. Let's finish. Let's get through Seattle so we can get into UFC though. Rolling.
Yeah, let's get into Seattle. Seattle Seahawks. This is a team that I think everybody can say took them by surprise. I think they had a season win total going into the year last year of like 4.5 or 5.5, if my memory serves me correctly. Looking at this, they flew over that total. They went 9-8, 5-4 at home, 4-4 on the road, held their own in the division, only getting swept by the 49ers, went 4-2, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. They did play a lot of close games last year, though, 4-6 in those games. So maybe some room for improvement in those close games for Seattle this year. The guy pictured here, Geno Smith, everybody was down on him. Everybody wrote him off. He famously said that he didn't write back in that famous interview after, he came out and, tore it up, lit up the field, and he lit up the year. He really did have a good year, got himself paid. What are your guys' thoughts on the Seahawks? What are your thoughts on Geno? Does he have another performance in him like he did last year, the reigning comeback player of the year, I'll add?
Shout out Geno Smith, Roland. That was week one of the NFL season. Denver Broncos at Seattle, and Geno went out there and mopped the floor with Russell Wilson. So shout out Geno. That was a legendary post-game speech where he's saying that he didn't write back. I mean, if there's one thing that we learned is that he's going to give his receivers a chance. Yeah. I think last year coming into the season, we had all kind of written off their offense. DK Metcalf kind of put him on the back burner. Lockett, who's Mr. Consistent, right? Top 20 wide receiver year after year, injury or not. We kind of just wrote off the Seahawks offense, and they were being drafted. Their ADP was a lot higher than normal. If Russell Wilson would have been there, they would have been being drafted higher. But Geno Smith came out and proved that he's gonna throw the ball around, man. Whether it gets intercepted or not, they're gonna be in some high scoring games, and he's gonna be slinging the ball. So, as far as the Seahawks go, now we see them add the wide receiver from Ohio State. I'm not even going to try and say his name because I'm crunk.
Jackson
already.
Smith and Jigba.
There it is. Ron, baby, with the pronunciation of the week.
Shout out to Justin. If I got that wrong, Justin would have murdered me with his.
But yeah, man,
Ohio State
more
boy.
firepower for the Seahawks, right? As far as their offense go, I think that they're a fantasy offense that you're going to that you're going to be okay with. I think Geno Smith is going to be a quarterback that if you punt on QB, you can take him late or maybe even stream him. Pretty sure somebody's going to draft him just because of how he slings the ball. But the Seattle Seahawks are playing, pretty exciting football. We'll see what they do with their running back position. I know, Roland, you're pretty interested in their running back position as a Kenneth Walker fantasy football owner. But, yeah, man, I think the Seahawks could make it interesting. Don't see them beating the Niners, but they're going to be a respectable team in what everybody thought was going to be a rebuild as soon as Russell Wilson left.
Yeah, hey, Big Reenie's in the house. Shout out Big Reenie. What's up, man? A supporter of the podcast here. He does have merch and music available. RGV 956 representative in the biggest way from our hometown of Mission, Texas. Follow him on his social medias, man. Big Reenie. He's got a song called Fuego out right now. That's hot. Thank you, bro. We're not talking about the Lions today, bro, but we're gonna get to the Lions.
We're gonna get to the Lions. Yeah. We're big Dan Campbell fans here.
Yeah, man, for sure. But the Seattle Cinderellas, man, boys, the first thought is like, no way it's going to happen again. Cinderella stories are only made to happen once in a lifetime. But how can you sleep on that performance by Geno and doubt this man after he proved everybody wrong? The team got better, like Ben said. They added, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Kenneth Walker, I think, is an absolute dog if he can stay healthy. I love their offense this year. The defense is the only question for me. Like Roland mentioned here, 10 games decided by one score or more, and they were 4-6 in those games. So their season could have gone a little better, but it could have gone a little worse. I know there was a few games where they won by like absolute luck. However, the Cardinals aren't great this year. The Rams aren't great this year. So dare I say they're in the same position as last year, kind of like that 9-8, 10-7, even like the old Dallas Cowboys, that good old 8-8 sneaking into the wild card here, especially with the division, the other NFC divisions. Like the Saints and the Bucks, who are just absolute garbage as well. So don't sleep on the Seattle. No sleep. It's not sleepless in Seattle this year. I'm on them. I like them a lot. The Seattle Cinderellas and Geno Smith. Let's just get over to the additions and the departures.
Hey, they definitely have wild card written all over them. I mean, it is pretty much like last year. But Ron said he's a believer in Geno now. I think that the offense can succeed under Geno. Are you a Geno Smith believer?
Yeah. I mean, he showed that he's a good and he's a gunslinger. Like you said in the beginning, he's going to give the receivers a chance. That's really all that they needed, because the year before that, Russell Wilson did not really have a good year. They still, were there, but Geno Smith gave them a chance this year. We did not think highly of them, but I am a believer of Geno Smith. He showed that he's a good quarterback. He does take chances, but I mean, that's what you want. He's going to throw some interceptions here and there. But you got to live with that at that point. And they believed in him enough to give him a contract. So I'm going to go with the team on this one and say that what he did on the field last year is going to be repeatable. in 2023. But
Yeah.
let's look at some of these additions. Draymond Jones, a pretty good signing for them in the interior defensive line. The reunion with Bobby Wagner after he was a trader, went over to the Rams. He said, "Hey, will you guys take me back for my retirement tour?" They happily said, "Yes, you're a Hall of Famer. Come on back." And then they signed Devin Bush over from the Steelers. They do lose Rashad Penny, who's a starter now with the Eagles as of today, and they lose Shelby Harris and Gabe Jackson. You guys want to go over to the draft picks real quick and just talk about the
Definitely,
additions all together?
This is what was interesting.
You don't want to talk about Bobby Wagner?
Well, I was just gonna wrap it all into one here with Jackson Smith-Njigba, and then they drafted Zach Charbonnet, a running back out of UCLA, highly touted. A lot of people had him in the top of the running back board, if you will. Questionable in terms of how that's going to play out with Kenny Walker being a bell cow running back, or maybe we might have a split backfield there. But you see the rest of the draft there. Business as usual for the Seahawks, drafting some defense there. What do you guys think about their offseason? Do you give them, an A or a B? I know we didn't give a rating to the 49ers, but do you like what the Seahawks have done this offseason with their draft and their additions?
I think they surprised a lot of people with that Devon Witherspoon pick at number 5.
Yeah.
I think everybody expected the defensive lineman out of Georgia to go there. We ended up seeing him fall to the Eagles, and the rich got richer, right? But the Seahawks needed a pass rush, bro. I know that they addressed it in round 2 with the pick that they got from Denver, but I just wish that they would have addressed pass rush in the first round. We saw their offense was explosive, but in those close games, they just couldn't get to the quarterback. They were among the bottom 5 in the NFL in sacks last season. So I think that they needed to address the pass rush situation in the first round. And they took, we know that they have good cornerbacks already. They had that Kobe Bryant and shout out UTSA alum, right? Wooten.
Yeah. Also.
So I think that they should have taken some pass rushers instead of, a third receiver and a third DB personally.
Okay.
I don't mind them going DB because the teams in their division aren't a threat. I think running the ball, we know that Arizona really can't run the ball as well. Murray's a guy who just likes to get out and, gunsling it. There's somebody had to say gunslinger today. And the Rams, same thing, not a great, backfield. So I don't hate that move. Anytime you can get a solid cornerback who can come up and play the run. I think they have I was with Peck today. We went to go eat, and who's that big signing from the Jets that they had? I don't know why I'm going blank. That cornerback, he tore his hamstring the first week.
Adams, bro, the safety
Adams
should be playing defensive line.
Yeah, there you go. There. So I think that they just kind of wanted to beef up that secondary. So I don't hate that pick. I love that pick that Roland mentioned, the Charbonnet from UCLA. You get a guy like him to give Walker a little bit of rest, and I like it, man. I'm liking the Seahawks the more and more that we go on this show.
You just went to lunch with Tech, bro. That's all it is. Hey, Roland, is Chardonnay like a pace changer for Kenneth Walker, or are they more or less the same running back?
I think they're more or less the same running back. I think Kenny Walker might actually be a little bit more of a bruiser, if you will.
He's a little bigger, yeah.
But, they're about the same mold, if you will. I don't know if it's so much of a pace change. It's just another very talented running back. A guy that can do it all.
I didn't know if it was kind of like a thunder or lightning type of thing, or if it was just, just straight up backfield competition. You know what I mean? So I guess it's straight up competition.
Yeah, it might be a competition. That's the one thing that worries me. I know the word has been that Kenny Walker is the guy. He is the number 1 running back going into the backfield this year. But you know how it is with running backs. It's a revolving door at times. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, sir. Hey, were you all surprised that they didn't draft quarterback? I mean, I know that you talked about them paying Geno Smith, but this was another team that everybody thought could have drafted Richardson. He was kind of rumored to go to them. Obviously, the Colts took him prior to that, but were you surprised that they didn't take a quarterback? Do you think that they're playing the long game with the quarterback?
To be honest, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Who's their backup?
No, I have no idea who the backup is.
Drew Lock.
So they're believing in Geno Smith. Like, Drew Lock is their backup. Wow.
I think maybe. I'm not sure. But, yeah, I think they believe in Geno Smith, at least for the time being. And they're playing the long game here. And I know the quarterback class was pretty, I guess, highly touted coming into this year, but the one next year is might
better.
be even better. So we'll see what happens with the Seahawks and the quarterback position. Probably still more to come. Nobody's job is safe really, and who knows what Geno Smith will do. But looking at their schedule for 2023, just right off the bat, in the top 10 in terms of strength of schedule based off 2022 win percentage at number 10. They open the year. Is that with the Rams? Yep, they open the year with the Rams. Then they got a game at Detroit. And then they have an Carolina and New York. And then they have an early bye week. What do you guys think about early bye weeks? Ron, do you have any thoughts on that? Or do you prefer to see your team have a bye week kind of later in the season?
I think their bye week is in. I think this schedule goes the other way.
Their bye week
I think
is
it
week,
goes.
no, it's week 5.
It's week 5.
Yeah, because this schedule goes all the way down.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I was reading November. See, got to get the cobwebs out, dude. That sucks, bro. I would hate an early bye week because then you have to play how many games in a row, like 11 or some shit like that. That's terrible, especially for a team like this who you want to see what you got early, and you're gonna see what you have, and then it's like, oh, break. So I hate the bye weeks early. That's my take on the bye week being so early.
And, just going through this schedule and just looking at it, you got the Bengals after that bye week. Then you got some rest against the Cardinals potentially. And then they do have that matchup with the AFC North. They got the NFC East as well on their schedule. So pretty tough schedule looking at it. Then, they close the
schedule's tough.
Yeah, they close the schedule, the last 3 games of the year. Tennessee, Pitt, and Arizona. Just right off the bat, if I'm going to do some quick math real quick here, just
the win total is 8.5.
Man, I see them right there, like right around 9, right around 10 wins maybe.
Being the fact that their schedule late is so tough, to have an early bye week is just a double whammy, bro, because you have the Steelers, the Titans going on December 31st, backwards. You have the Steelers, then you have the Titans, then the Eagles, then the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Niners again from November 23rd to December 25th. Their Christmas is going to suck this year because they have about 7 games in a row that are going to be tough late. So you better get some wins early against, who do you think though? September 24th against Carolina could be a win there. October 22nd, you have the Cardinals and then the Browns, it looks like right after that.
Yeah,
very tough schedule.
Best case scenario, the way that I looked at the schedule, and I still have them right around. I take it back; it's not 9 or 10. I have them right around 8 or 9. Looking at the schedule, and that's because I have them. Best case scenario, going 3-1. I can see them beating the Lions in Detroit. I can see that happening, and then I can see them beating the Panthers and the Giants. That's best case scenario. 3-1 going into the bye. Then you got the Bengals, give them the L there, win against the Cards, toss up with the Browns.
That'll be a good game.
I give the Ravens the edge there in that game. Even though
Big Greeny says 9-8.
Yeah, I see 9-8 or 8-9. I'm right there with him.
That's a tough bye week, man. Week 5, you got a lot of football to play, bro. And Roland, as a Kenneth, I know that you're trying to make a decision as far as your fantasy roster and Kenneth Walker, but that's also kind of a turnoff with the bye week being so soon. That means during playoff time, he's gonna have played already 6, 7 games, 8 in a row. Going into fantasy football playoffs. So it's not always, guys aren't always going to be the healthiest heading into that at that point. So that week 5 bye is not good for the Seahawks, man. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, man, it's terrible. We're talking about the games from the 23rd of November to the 31st of December. Yeah. That's a gauntlet right there, bro. You're tired. You're banged up. Thanksgiving comes around. From Thanksgiving to Christmas, you're going to get jacked.
Yeah, they'll have a cupcake to end the season, and maybe that'll be the game that gets them 9-8 and into the playoffs as a wild card or not. But It is nice that they have the Cardinals, who are probably going to be tanking by that point of the season, as the final game of the year.
True.
Yeah. All right, well, that was the schedule for the Seahawks. We only have a couple more slides left, and then we're on to the UFC. If you're interested in the UFC, it is coming in about, say about 10 minutes. But season bets, boys. the Super Bowl, NFC Championship, the West, and 8.5 was their total. We just finished talking about their schedule. Roland, if you're at 9 wins, you barely, hit that minus 160. Like Ben said, it could be against the Cardinals, but Vegas has it kind of, they kind of hit the nail on the head with this one, right at 8.5 wins. What's y'all's best bet that you're laying here?
Honestly, if I were to take anything on these guys right now, it would probably be their win total. I mean, I don't think they're going to win the NFC West, and I think they're right there on the nine win mark. And then if you give them the credit for, the Cardinals tanking at the end of the year, they'll probably beat them regardless. But, they got a win baked in there at the end of the year if they're potentially sitting there on that 8 mark at the end of the year. So I like that at 8.5, but at the end of the day, I would probably just pass on this team altogether.
Straight up pass, bro. I'm not even gun to head. I would die, bro. I would just die, bro, because it'd be better than just sweating this shit out, bro. This would be horrible.
It's kind of strange that they're only plus 195 for the West. I would have thought they'd be a lot more of a dog.
I mean, it's a 2-team race, right? We talked about. So if it's just them and the Niners, they got 2-1 odds to win it. It's kind of about right. Yeah. Plus 195.
Yeah, I guess. I thought at least 275, maybe 250, maybe 3-1 would have been cool. But so this really isn't interesting at all because we're not on any of those. Right. Let's finish off with fantasy before we go to the UFC.
Much like their counterparts in the 49ers, this is a pretty fantasy-friendly team. We didn't think it was going to be the case last year, but Geno Smith came in and saved the day for Seattle and everybody that ended up. Because I don't want to say that anybody willingly drafted Seattle Seahawks.
They were all value. They were all value.
You just ended up with them is what I'm saying. You're like, shit. Like I ended up with Tyler Lockett again. I can't get rid of him. But anyways, Geno Smith, QB 15 coming into the year. Kenny Walker, running back 16, RB1 coming into the year for him in terms of the depth chart. DK Metcalf, borderline wide receiver 1 at wide receiver 12. And then you got Lockett and then Jigba at 28 and 45. Where are you guys going off the board? Are you looking at one of these receivers and DK Metcalf and Lockett, or are you giving Kenny Walker a ride here?
I think that I'm passing on. I mean, I like Geno as a streamer QB if I do punt. And as far as receiver, I'm passing at DK at wide receiver 12. I think he's kind of boom or bust. He's not going to be that really high reception guy. Last year where he was going in like the 4th round and shit like that, I think you were getting a lot of value. But like you said, Roland, when you were deciding between Tyler Lockett or Adam Thielen, you're probably just going to go ahead and take Tyler Lockett, and then it ends up being a gem on your team, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's a start every week. You know that he's going to have that injury in the year where he's going to sit out a game or two. But for the most part, Tyler Lockett's pretty consistent. I'm interested in the bottom 2 wide receivers. I'm passing on Metcalf. I'm passing on Walker because of the injury and the competition. And I'll take a streamer on Geno.
Nice. What about you,
Walker? First round, dude. Justin's gonna love me for this, bro, because I'm all in on Jackson Smith and Jigba, bro. He's to me that Devontae Smith to the Eagles right here. He's gonna be a sleeper pick. We know Tyler Lockett's injuries. He's a veteran in the game. His injuries pop up. He's not the most consistent guy on the field. Jackson Smith and Jigba is a guy who can get you about 3 to 5 receptions a game on just quick little slants, quick little dump offs. I know now the NFL receivers like to do those screens. There's like a wide receiver screen almost in every drive, maybe even 2 of them. So I think he's a guy who's fast. He can get you yards after the catch. And at wide receiver 45, I mean, if he's that far back, I could see it. I could definitely see it. He does have enough speed too to get over the top of defenses. If Walker and that running back from UCLA that you just mentioned are going to be pounding it inside pretty good, you could see defenses collapse. And he's a sleeper pick for me, man. Out of all the 5 guys on here, I'm focused on Jackson Smith.
That was a pause earlier. I just didn't
Sounds like Ron is down with Jackson as a flex. Roland, are you okay with him as a flex? Are you off of him?
I can see him being a second half of the year rookie. I can see him being a guy that ascends towards the end of the year.
Point.
And is a guy that can maybe, win you a league if he proves that, the talent is real and he can just come on and, and just produce, because we've seen that happen with these receivers. Where my eyes go to, and this is just because of my personal interest, is just, and I'm going to say is twofold with Kenny Walker. If you have him like in a keeper league and you got him in like the 9th or 10th, I still think there's good value for him there because he's at running back 16. Because that means in a redraft league, that puts him kind of like in that zone of running backs that I don't like to touch, like in the third or the
Sanders,
fourth
those
or
type
the
of guys.
fifth round, like where you're better off taking a high-end quarterback or you're better off taking another high-end receiver, so in that instance, I'm probably going to stay away from him because he's a running back too because of what they did with Zach Charbonnet. Just so if it were the other way around and they didn't draft him, I think he would be a borderline, second round guy maybe, depending on, what you think about him. But I would stay away from Kenny Walker in redraft leagues. I still think he's valuable in keepers. But yeah, that's where my eyes go here. And I like Lockett and Njigba. I agree with you guys both. Those are where my eyes would go in terms of the 2 receivers or the 3 receivers.
We have to be camaradas here and tell Mark to pump the brakes here on Walker first.
I was going to say, dog, is this a reach right
Mark, you don't want to do that to your fantasy season, camarada. Unless you're in a 16-man or 20-man league, we're not going Walker first round.
Or Mark, he might have had him on his team last year and he's just fallen in love again. Hey, because that happens too. That's a flip side of having a guy and being stung by him.
Let's talk about that. How do you feel about that? Like if a guy kills it for you one year, are you ready just to go right back to him the next year? Or
why wouldn't
you? Because I did it with Debo last year, bro. 2 years prior when they introduced,
I did it with Jonathan Taylor.
When they introduced Debo as a running back, he went crazy. And then last year I was like, you know what? Debo had his career year. I'm gonna pump the brakes. And it ended up being a good call. But usually, like Ron said, why wouldn't you just go right back to the well? Are you that type of player, or do you assess every year as a new year?
I kind of try and assess every year as a new year, make sure the situation is even, at least as it was going into last year, or a little bit better, and trying to account for all that. But I mentioned it with Justin Jefferson. He had a record year. Probably going to pump the brakes on him a little bit this year. Doesn't mean I won't, try and grab him in some places, but pause. But I'm still, on the Justin Jefferson train a little bit. In that regard. So the other side,
if you're second overall and somebody takes CMC, you ain't gonna.
I'm gonna take Justin Jefferson for sure. But I was just gonna complete the answer and say you can also look at it like playing blackjack, like when it comes to hitting on 15 or 16, right? Or you better always hit if you're gonna hit, right? You better pick one thought, or you better hold off if you're not. So,
and that's not the way that I am, bro. I know in blackjack, like there's a book, but you got to pick your spots. And I feel like in fantasy, I try and pick my spots as well, instead of just playing it by the book and just being like, you know what, touches, stats just say the touches are going to be there. So we got to go with this guy. Like I said, I kind of like to feel it out. And if a guy killed it for me, you know what, bro, let's take the Peyton Manning high road. And we're just going to go our separate ways here. And, brother, I'm going to support you for the rest of your career, but I'm not going to go right back to it unless it's the right situation.
Yeah, I mean, AB's a perfect example. If you went back to the well with him from like 14 to 18, you won a lot of championship or a lot of fantasy games.
And even when he was with the Bucks, like if you had AB on your team, AB's different. He's different. Yeah. Let's get to some UFC though, bro. Let's talk some fights. Let's talk some fights and close out this podcast, boys.
All right, UFC 291. We talked about it the last UFC card when we broke down. I forgot the card already, but we mentioned that this might be even better than the card that we were breaking down that day. And just looking at the main card, you don't even have the prelims here, because if you look at the prelims are pretty stacked, and you don't even have to be an MMA hardo to know all those names. Like those are just, it's a good card. But just starting right off at the top, or do you want to start with the intro to the main card, Ben? It's your call.
Yeah, let's start at the bottom. We got a pretty interesting fight.
The intro, very interesting fight. Battle of styles here, if you will. Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. Ben, what are your thoughts here? Break it down.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one. Michael Chiesa hasn't fought in about a year and a half. He's been taking his talents behind the booth. He pretty much transitioned to just a desk guy, like I said, over the last year and a half. But he's a guy that when he fights, you kind of know exactly what you're going to expect from him. You expect from him to get in close, get in tight, hold the guy up against the fence, drag him down to the ground, and imply his jiu-jitsu. Usually, Michael Chiesa is a guy who is a way better hammer than he is a nail. As soon as he starts getting beat on, he's that type of guy that'll give up his back, like, here, take my back, I'll go out like this. So when he's getting dominated, it's really not a good look for him. Kevin Holland is a guy that can do that. We know Kevin Holland, he hits hard. He's knocked guys out, from his back. Jacare Souza, he puts guys out, but we know that his weakness is also wrestling. Now, Kevin Holland is pretty big for this weight class. He's going to be taller than Chiesa. It comes down to whether Chiesa can play the wrestling game and whether he can do it for 2 rounds. I do think that this is going to go to a decision. I mean, it's Chiesa by sub. It's Kevin Holland by KO. I see it going to a decision. Man, like, just based off fight IQ and who I want my money on, the lesser of the wild cards definitely is Michael Chiesa. I don't like the inactivity. He's an underdog in this fight. That much I do like. I never want to bet Kevin Holland as a favorite just because you don't know what you're going to get from him. He can go out there and just do a striking fight with Wonderboy when you know that you're not going to beat Wonderboy striking. Will he go out there and wrestle with Michael Chiesa? I don't know. For that reason, I'm going to go with Michael Chiesa here as a dog. I'm not very confident in this pick. I think that this is one of the bigger toss-ups in the card, and it's a really good clash of styles. This is good matchmaking.
Shit, I'm gonna just real quick go with Kevin Holland, man. He's the bigger guy. He has about a 5 or 6 inch more reach. I think, like you said, Ben, Chiesa's focus hasn't been in the fight game. He's been in the booth. Kevin Holland is still a mean dude who wants to just put you out. And I think I'm gonna go with Kevin Holland. I think he's a little bit more athletic, and I don't know if that is a big factor in UFC because size, weight, all that stuff. It's all about the skill. But give me Kevin Holland. I think they do go to decision. They put on maybe a slower fight than maybe we like to see, but I think Kevin Holland takes it, and Chiesa just goes back to the booth and chills.
Yeah, for me on this fight, I kind of agree with Ben in terms of you just don't know what you're going to get with Holland. He's a guy, he has his antics, and I'm not going to say he lets his antics get in the way of what he does in the octagon, but he's a wild card in terms of his strategy when he goes into the octagon, if you will. But if I were betting here, I'm looking at Michael Chiesa. I think if it goes the distance, he's winning the fight. He's having his hand raised because he's probably dominated octagon control, gotten Holland on his back throughout the fight. So I would go there. But I would like to bet on Kevin Holland by KO or TKO.
There you go,
That's
Roland.
how I would touch this fight. I'm still undecided, and if I'm picking a winner, I would probably go with Michael Chiesa here because I just think he's probably the more solid fighter at this point. I haven't seen Holland take too many leaps in the other parts of his game that aren't striking, even though, he said he's been working on it. That's what he's been saying. He's like, I'm not an expert by any means. I've just been working on it and stuff like that. So
And Kevin Holland at minus 170, minus 180, bro. Like, we're here talking about we don't know what we're going to get from him.
Minus 145.
Minus 145 now. So the line's gotten bet down because that's not what he opened at. But, like, this is a guy who gets taken down, and we've seen him talking to commentators and other fighters instead of listening to his corner. So, he's there to put on a show.
Exactly.
I don't know if he's there to win fights. He's there to put on a show.
Well, and to your point, he said that, the fight game to him is about fighting as much as he can and getting paid, putting on shows. He's not necessarily concerned with the rankings and moving up,
going after the title.
He just, like you said, he wants to put on a show.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at this right, though, Chies's last fight was against Brady, November 20th, 2021. He lost in a unanimous decision. He lost before that to Vicente Luque. He got tapped in the first round. His last win was against Magny, January of 2021.
Yeah, he's been out of the game, and he's been fighting wrestlers, but I don't expect Kevin Holland to be the one taking him down. Sean Brady wrestled Chiesa. You talked about Vicente Luque subbing him. so also good on the ground. I mean, like I said, it's not like, oh, I'm taking the fighter on the streak. It's nothing like that. It's Kevin Holland as a favorite. I'm good. I'm just gonna pass on that. Like, this is probably not a fight that I'm gonna have any money on personally. But for that Tout Master competition, I will be going with Chiesa as the underdog.
All right, 2 versus 1 here. Next fight, probably the fight that Ben's the most
This is the
excited
one,
for
bro.
here. Tony Ferguson
Lead us into
versus
this.
Bobby Green. And Ben, before you even say it, I'm just going to say it because you're going to talk a lot more about this fight than I will. I find these odds to be a little disrespectful.
Ridiculous.
Just because I know Tony Ferguson's on a five fight loser, I get it. But Bobby Green at minus 375, as noted here on the screen, that's crazy.
That is a little fucked up.
Bobby Green will probably, excuse my language, fuck me up at any point on the street, but he should not be minus 375 against. It's a lot of guys on the roster, but he can still he'd fuck me up. I'm just gonna say that,
bro.
He's 10-8, bro.
I thought about.
Oh no, I'm sorry. He's not.
The little name that we have down there at the bottom of our little square. I thought about coming in as El Cucuy tonight, but we had to do NFL, and I didn't want to scare anybody away before we got to the UFC. But yes, I'm hyped. This is Tony Ferguson fight week. He's not fighting, Nate Diaz. I don't have to play both sides of the fence, straddle the line here. These are disrespectful fucking odds, bro. I mean, I get that he lost to Nate Diaz. Prior to that, he lost to Chandler, a guy who's fought for the belt and only fought top 5 guys. Prior to that, he lost to Benio Dariush, Charles Oliveira. It's been nothing but killers. Bobby Green is an average UFC fighter, bro. We got to relax with these odds. I'm not really paying attention to all the Tony Ferguson talk about him saying, I feel good. I'm coming back. Listen, Tony. You just got more skills than this guy, brother. I'm not buying into the UFC embedded banter that he's talking about. But man, I like him in this spot. I like him as an underdog, bro. I think that Bobby Green, another guy that you want to play as a dog, but as a minus almost 400 favorite. Like, that's wild. Get out of here, bro.
Unless the UFC knows something that we don't know. But it looks like
we've seen Tony Ferguson get front kicked to the face, knocked out cold by Michael Chandler. Granted, he won the first round of that Michael Chandler fight. Listen, I might get proved wrong, but until Tony Ferguson retires, I think this is a guy that I'm just going to go down with, bro.
Hey,
he's always a live dog.
And Steven brings up a very valid point. I've heard this a lot. The 5 losses. I mean, anybody would have this 5-loss fight streak if you fought these 5 guys. Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Benil Dariush, Michael Chandler, Nate Diaz. A lot of guys lose more than half.
Bobby Green is losing to all those guys, 100%.
And granted, the Nate Diaz fight wasn't the best look. And shout out Steven Garcia for commenting that. I appreciate it. Sounds like he might be on the El Cucuy side.
He is.
Yeah, man. Steve is actually the guy who this is his shop right here, the Energy Inc. in Mercedes. So we're doing something with him that's gonna be super cool. I got a little something on me right now with that, we're going to do with him. But shout out to Steve. He's a big UFC fan, bro. He loves the show. He's a big supporter of us. We're going to collaborate with him and Energy Inc. It's a shop in Mercedes. So if you're from the area, he does screen printing. He does embroidery. Some of the best work that I've ever seen. Not just because he's like a day one homie, but dude, he has we have a video. Go to our Instagram and I put a video up there, I believe, of his shop or go to our Facebook. Top of the line stuff. We look forward to working with you, Steve. And thanks for watching the show, man.
Shout out Steven. He's part of the El Cucuy, hive. So I'm with it. I'm with it. Just to cut this short, bro, I think Tony Ferguson has more ways to win. Yes, he could get beat up because he is that old guy. But Bobby Green is not any world beater. Bobby Green is pretty one-dimensional. He's a good boxer. I think Tony Ferguson can mix it up well. Hey, Tony, it's time to ankle pick some fools, man. It's time to go back to the old reliable ankle pick this fight.
Bobby Green's last 3 fights, real quick. He fought Gordon, which it just says he could not continue.
He headbutted him. He headbutted him.
Oh, yeah, that was the one. He lost to Drew Dober in December of 22, and then he fought Malkachev in February of 2022.
Yeah,
so the champ. So Yeah, and then he lost to Dober, and then he couldn't continue. So, Kukui's the live dog, boys? Are we making that a WTBS consensus?
One
pick?
last time.
Or Roland's
Plus
smiling over there, Roland. I don't know.
225 on El Cucuy, bro. Come on now.
One
Come
last
on.
time. Got to root for him.
Hey, Dana White might kick him out of the fucking
And
UFC if he loses this
Hey, and
one,
he's still on Khabib's ass, bro. He's still on Khabib's head, bro.
We know what would happen.
He's still on
We know what
Khabib.
would happen.
Rick here is just talking nonsense, saying it's not worth the
Come
price.
on,
None of the
Rick.
fights are worth that kind of money.
Well,
But-
this one alone would headline a lot of UFC fight
Relax,
nights.
Roland.
Here.
Fight nights. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say this one would headline a lot of fight nights right here. Stephen Thompson versus Michael Pereira. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and say this is a low-key, fight of the night contender here. These guys are just
bro.
What's that?
The line.
Oh, the line. I'm seeing here plus 140 on Pereira, minus 165. Stephen Thompson as a favorite. This is gonna be fight of the night potentially to me. Pereira, we all know him, nothing but fireworks, super athlete. Stephen Thompson, ultimate point fighter, great striker, always in exciting fights unless he's getting taken down. Ben, what are your thoughts here? Are you even gonna bet on this fight, or is there just too much unknown?
I will have money on this fight. I will have money on this fight. I feel pretty good about this fight. I wish this fight would have happened a year or two ago when Pereira came into the UFC backflipping off the cage and backflipping to stomp on fools, like when he was just doing the crazy shit. Lately, he's become kind of a wrestler. He's gotten his grappling game up, and that might be his way to win here. We've seen Vicente Luque, I believe he beat Stephen Thompson. We've seen Bilal Muhammad dominate Stephen Thompson, on the ground. So will Pereira wrestle for three rounds, or at least 2 rounds to secure 2 rounds? I don't think so. He's that exciting fighter. I love Wonder Boy in this fight, bro. I know that he's 42, 43 years old. He doesn't really look like it.
No, he doesn't.
I expect this to be a stand-up fight, and at range, I mean, we saw what Wonder Boy did to Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland went out on his shield, but damn it, boy, did he get his ass kicked in that fight. Minus 160. I hope the price gets a little bit better. I'm not in yet, but I can guarantee you I will be on Wonder Boy Thompson Saturday night.
So you're not worried about the KO factor here with Pereira on
I don't think that his technique is as crisp. I think that he's just wild. He's loopy. He's kind of all over the place. If he wrestles and he can stick to that boring game plan, with his fight style, then kudos to him. I'll come back next week. I'll tip my hat. I'll say I got it wrong, but minus 160 on Wonder Boy here against a guy that we haven't seen fight anybody in the top 10. Give me Wonder Boy all day.
How's the weight here? Because on the UFC website it has him listed at 170.
Yeah,
for Pereira, and then 185 for Wonder Boy. So is Wonder Boy coming down?
Pereira's going up.
Pereira's going up. Okay, damn, that's always tough, bro. I'm gonna ride the Wonder Boy train here.
Yeah, I'm on Wonder Boy for much of the same reasons that Ben pointed out. Just a cleaner fighter.
Okay, Rick, here we go. Rick, finally, I think you've come to your senses here, and I think you're agreeing with Pereira runs out of gas.
There we go.
Unanimous on Wonder Boy. All right, let's go.
All right, well, let's go to the next one. This one,
co-main.
Did this turn into a title fight all of a sudden with what happened to Jamal Hill?
It didn't.
Is that official?
No, it's still a 3-rounder.
Okay, still a 3-rounder.
Oh.
We got Jan Blachowicz welcoming Alex Pereira into the light heavyweight division after coming off that loss against Israel Adesanya in the middleweight championship of the world. Ben, what do you think about the fight here? Jan Blachowicz coming off a strong performance, Pereira trying to prove himself in a new division. Do you think Jan's going to be too much man for Pereira, or do you think this is Pereira's rightful division?
This is a title eliminator fight, for sure. I think, like you said, Jan won his last fight. We know Pereira is coming up, from the 185 division or 180 division to fight here at 205 and make his debut. A lot of people are saying that this is pretty much a rematch because we saw Israel Adesanya come up when Jan was the champion at 205 and try to become double champ. We know that a lot of people try and compare Pereira and Adesanya's fight styles. Their whole careers are tied together, right? We've seen their great fights outside of the UFC, inside of the UFC. This is is Jan going to be able to, establish his power on Pereira? Israel Adesanya was struggling to make that 205-pound weight class. I think that he just went up because he saw a winnable fight in somebody like Jan, a guy that we usually don't expect to be a UFC champion, so he wanted to capitalize, right? Same thing Henry Cejudo saw when he saw Aljamain Sterling as a champion. Hey, you know what? I can fight this guy, get the belt. It's not that easy, buddy, you know? So will the same thing happen here? This is kind of like us, you know, the boring wrestling grinder. If he's going to win, Jan against, you know, Alex Pereira's highlight, flashy style stand-up. I do think that he will be taken down in this fight. I'm not going to say that he's not going to be taken down. Every round starts standing up, and Alex Pereira is going to finish Jan Blachowicz. So I believe that Pereira is an underdog in this fight, man. I don't know why. I'm leaning to a lot of underdogs in this card. Maybe the streak comes to an end. We've been on a little bit of a UFC heater, but I'm going with another dog here. And give me Pereira to win his first fight in the light heavyweight division.
The odds they have here are -120 for Jan and -110 for Pereira. So it's pretty much a pick 'em fight, man.
Yeah.
Ben, I was going to ask you, do you think this weight class is good for Pereira? So you have him winning the fight. So you think that he fits better into this weight class than Izzy did? Because I do think he's bigger.
100%. He cuts a lot more weight, and like we don't know how bad his weight cuts were because he never went through anything crazy. Obviously, true pro, right? Always made weight. Yep. We didn't hear any crazy stories, but you got to think for a guy that cuts 30, 40 pounds to make that weight class, yeah, he's going to be a lot better fighting at a more natural weight here. It's just has the takedown defense gotten better. We saw Israel Adesanya take him down in their first UFC fight. Wasn't able to do much because Izzy doesn't have much ground skill, but he did get the takedown. Jan will take advantage of that, right? But you got to think, you know, at a bulkier size, Pereira will have more strength to defend the takedowns as well. So I'm going to go with him, man. I think that this could be, you know, I think that people who probably watch UFC, like diehard UFC, and you all know I watch everything, so I would consider me on that side. But I think that side is leaning towards Jan and wrestling and having the easier path to victory. But this has been pretty calculated. I think they were waiting for Alex Pereira to go up to that light heavyweight division. We've heard Dana White talking about it for a long time. So I think this matchup was picked out by Pereira's team. You know, Glover's his training partner, so Glover has experience against Jan. I think that Alex Pereira gets it done here.
If I was talking to dude, you just took the words right out of my mouth. Did Teixeira make Jan tap? It's a submission
he
here
beat him
on the October of 2021. That's wild, bro. And that was coming off his win against Izzy. So he beats Izzy, and then he fights in October versus Teixeira, and Glover made him tap,
got the belt and fought Yuri, and he got choked out in that last second of a fight that he was dominating.
Yeah.
You know, now Glover's retired. Alex Pereira's buying him motorcycles to make sure that he stays retired and doesn't come back to the 205 division. So he's got you know, Glover who trains in the garage on his side. I think that Alex Pereira is ready for this move. I think that it's been pretty calculated. So I like Pereira here, boys. I think that the price on him here, we might be looking back at it after he starches Jan on the feet and say, damn, how was he only -110 against Jan Blachowicz? So,
yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to hear was just how he would stack up in the light heavyweight division in terms of his body, because I too was thinking coming into this fight that Jan was probably going to take him down and at least take 2 of 3 rounds by way of controlling the octagon. But if Pereira is, you know, more built for this division, I can see him holding his own, and he's going to beat him striking. I do not believe in Polish power. I'm not one of those believers when it comes to the striking. If they're striking, standing up, give me Pereira here. So I'm going to ride with Ben here on the short underdog, if you will.
Man, Ben, you just made me almost turn my pick around, but I'm gonna ride with the guy that I'm gonna ride with the guy that I've been going with. I said that Jan was gonna win. His leg kicks are very underestimated. I know he has really, really heavy leg kicks.
Crazy leg kicks.
You know, kicking a smaller guy naturally, you know, might help him. And if he does, you know, hit him with those huge leg kicks, he's gonna get weak. which is going to be easier for the takedowns. It might be a boring fight. We might not even get to see that exchange that Paredes going to want. I know Ben said every fight starts on the feet, but if your only chance is every 20, 30 seconds when the fight starts, then you're already kind of fighting a losing battle. I'm going to stick with Jan here. I think he gets it done. I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. I really hope it's not a boring fight. It should be a hell of a fight. Styles make fights, and I think this might be the fight of the night.
All right. So Ron's got his vote for fight of the night in here with the co-main event. And let's get to the main event. This is the BMF title. This is the George Masvidal title, if you will. He's going to be the one wrapping them around.
Masvidal's going to be wrapping it.
Yeah, he's wrapping the belt around the waist. Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier. This is a rematch. Poirier took the first fight. So in the rubber match is Justin Gaethje coming in as a plus 125 underdog. Poirier, in my eyes, the rightful favorite, minus 145. To many people, he's probably been a top 2, maybe top 3 boxer in the UFC for the greater part of his prime since he's been fighting, at the top of his division. Some people will say he has the best striking in the game. Going up against Justin Gaethje, who's been proclaimed the king of violence. This guy is, when he gets into the octagon, something's going to go down, and he's usually going to be the one putting the person down. Last fight for Poirier, however, coming off of victory against Chandler, and Gaethje coming off his last fight, which was a pretty exciting fight, where he just put together a pretty good show against Rafael Fiziev, and that Edwards versus Usman card absolutely pieced him up. Ben, what are your thoughts here in the rematch? Do you think Poirier is going to take him out again? Poirier, leading into this fight, did say when he first thought about running it back with him that he didn't want to run it back with Justin Gaethje. But, here we are. Ben, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I mean, who wants to run anything back with Justin Gaethje, bro? Dustin Poirier's been famous for wearing the cap, but that's war. You're signing up to go to war. He's already said this is a 5-round fight. If it goes to the 5th round, both of us will be in the hospital. He expects a hospital trip if it goes to a decision. I think everybody expects that if it goes to decision. I do like Dustin Poirier. I do lean Dustin Poirier, Roland. You know me, bro. I'm never really scared to lay the juice. Now he's at minus 155. I mean, we've seen Dustin Poirier get rocked in most of his fights. He has had to come back.
Early.
Yeah, the Chandler first round, we thought Chandler was going to get him out of there. Listen, he has that
even Connor touched him up a little.
He has that championship spirit. He can battle, and we do know that he's tested. He has the heart, and he'll fight till the end. That's why we love watching Dustin Poirier. But this is a guy that could put him out. At minus 155, I'm going to pass, bro. Do you have an over-under line?
Shoot, the over-under the last time that I saw it.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I probably should have had this information on.
Why?
Me.
What's your lean?
I think that the fight probably ends in the 2nd round.
Early, so you're going for under.
So I don't know if the over-under is 2.5 or if it's 3.5. What it may be, if it's over-under 2.5, that means that it has to get the 330 in the 3rd round. I like the under. I don't know if the over-under is 1.5. These are two guys that are going to meet in the middle. Not going to be much wrestling unless Poirier is doing the wrestling. I expect the war. I do expect Poirier to come out on top, but it's going to be shaky for both fighters in there, man. It's going to be violence. Give me the under. I don't know the exact over-under line. I think Roland's working on it, but I expect this to be finished by the 2nd round.
I'm going to go with Gaethje, bro. Yeah, I got to go with Gaethje here because of the way that Fiziev fight blew me away.
Dog. But Fiziev is not Poirier. All right?
I understand that. But Fiziev I think is a lot faster than Poirier. I don't think he's that strong. So if Gaethje's going to be ducking and sticking and moving from Fiziev, bro, he's going to be a lot faster inside that octagon against Poirier. Poirier, if he gets his hands on Gaethje, I think he'll have trouble. I think that Poirier has those stronger hands, but I think Gaethje's a little bit too fast for him, man. And I'm gonna go with Justin Gaethje here. His last fight before that was against Charles. We know that obviously he lost that fight, and then he beat Chandler. So this guy's used to fighting top of the line guys, just the way that Dustin is, man. But the speed that he showed me in his last fight against Fiziev,
over under is 2.5.
I like the under. I like the under. That would be my play.
The juice right now.
Hey, Alan already called you
the
out.
juice
man.
right now is
What do you
to the over. Over 2.5 minus 140 to the over. That's probably because both guys are extremely durable.
Dude, minus 140 to the over, so you're getting plus money on the under.
Yeah.
Hey, Alan, Stephen A's got people in his ear, bro, feeding him stats. Come on.
That's true.
Give me a break here, pal.
In this fight, to give my pick, I'd probably go with Dustin Poirier. To Ron's point, I do think that Justin Gaethje, he looked a little crisper striking against Fiziev.
Yeah,
he looked crisper,
crispy.
I will say.
I like that word, Roland.
He wasn't so loosey. When he was punching, he was just straight connecting with Fiziev on most of those. And it did look a little impressive. I will give you that. But I'm still rolling with my boy Dustin Poirier here. Yes, it's crazy watching him fight every single fight where he's almost been put out in all of like his last fights, including the ones that he ends up losing. But it's just always a roller coaster with him. He has the ultimate endurance, though. That's why he's able to come back from being at the gates of heaven, just about to be put out, but he finds his way back most of the time. And I like the over here just because I like the durability of both guys. I like the durability of both guys. I can see this.
This is the BMF title. We're not going to take an over on the BMF title.
I can't see Poirier getting put out, though.
So just take Poirier and leave the over alone, all right? Leave it alone. Hey, Steven,
crazy fight.
And you all have pointed out that Gaethje's last fight was impressive. I feel all of you on that. It was impressive. Fiziev was pretty much a pick-em odds, or if not the favorite against him.
Yeah, he was.
But Fiziev is not Poirier, bro.
No, yeah, for sure.
We've seen this fight before. We've seen it happen already. I believe that Poirier has 2 fights with Eddie Alvarez, and they both went the same way. Or no, one time it was a disqualification for a knee.
It's Eddie Alvarez, bro.
And Eddie Alvarez belongs in the conversation of BMF with these 2 guys.
No way.
He does. He has losses to both guys, but he belongs in there.
And Connor whipped his ass. Okay, wait. Before, we're gonna keep going a little bit longer. But everybody in the chat right now, first of all, thank you for watching. There's 5 fights up here. Just pick your 5 winners. Just comment them real quick. Be like Holland, Green, Pareto, whatever. Just pick your 5 fighters. You guys do that, and we're gonna do that before we leave, so we can put some receipts. Because I've seen a lot of back and forth here. So we're gonna put some receipts, and we're gonna pick our 5 winners. Everybody who's watching, pick your 5 winners. We're gonna pick our 5 winners.
Yeah. So
Benny's
I'll start us off. I'm going to start us off with Chiesa. I'm going to go Ferguson. I'm going to go Wonder Boy. I'm going to go Pereira. And then I'm going to go Poirier.
All right. Those are your 5. Roland, who you got, boy?
Honestly, I have the same 5.
Roland, you a smart dude, bro.
The same 5. The only one that I'm the most iffy on, though, if I were to differ anywhere from Ben, it's going to be on that first fight with Chiesa and Holland. Because I can't see Holland putting out Chiesa.
So Final five. Call it right now.
I'll still go with Chiesa if I'm making a true bet. Yeah, I'm sticking with
all right, so I'm gonna go Holland, Ferguson, Steve Thompson, Jan Blachowicz, and Justin Gaethje. Those are my 5.
All right. Hey,
so we'll come back to the show and we'll
also real quick, just on the prelims. Just real quick shout out. I gotta shout out the Black Beast. Derek Lewis.
Didn't even talk about Derek Lewis. Yeah.
Derek Lewis is on the prelims against Rogerio de Lima, and Derek Lewis is around plus 170, plus 180. I know that he's been getting finished. He's been getting torn up.
Is de Lima the Cuban?
No, de Lima's a Brazilian. De Lima's a Brazilian that's going to be knocked the fuck out Saturday night. Derek Lewis plus money. Let's go.
Let him know. So Derek Lewis, that's I'm gonna get this clip and I'm gonna say Ben told y'all, and if you guys don't follow us, this guy, this way, 12-2 in the last fight night, 11-2 on the London fight night. This guy's been on an absolute tear, and I have to ask, is it yourself that's making these plays? Or is there a little bit of a consensus with you and Justin? Let's just be honest.
Justin's been on vacation, Justin, I've been texting him the picks. I'm not saying that I don't listen to other sources. I listen to my MMA media. I listen to interviews, and then I make my picks based off that. But yeah, we're on a little bit of a heater. I don't like this kind of ojo, a little bit of sal you're throwing on it. highlighting it for the masses. Here in an hour, we're an hour and a half into the show. But Saturday is a big card. We got a lot of good lines. I like dogs, bro. And you know what? If we go 10-5, but some of those dogs hit. If he comes in at plus 225, plus 275, if we get some of those dogs to come in, I'm gonna be all right. So give me Chiesa and Ferguson. Give me those two, and then the rest will be okay.
Derek, imagine a Derek Lewis and
Ferguson parlay.
Kukui parlay.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, speaking of Ben, listening to the MMA media and the interviews, and Derek Lewis, I was listening to one of his interviews. He was talking about his last fight and the last couple of fights, really, since you mentioned he's been getting put out. He said before the weight cut of his last fight, he pretty much blacked out. And he said that his life flashed before his eyes, pretty much. Like that's how drastic his weight cut was. He mentioned he even got into the context of it all that he started cutting weight just 2 or 3 days before the fight. And then he compared that to coming into this fight, and he said he's already at weight. And this was an interview.
And for Derek Lewis, and to be honest, Roland, I feel you on that. But, I mean, the weight limit is 260, 265. So
he's a big guy, though.
He is a big guy. Yeah. I'm not buying into his weight shit. I think that he just needs to not turtle up when he gets hit. He tries to play possum, and lately the refs have not been letting him play possum. They've been getting in the middle of it. I mean, it's heavyweights, right? So when you get hit 5, 6, 7 times unanswered by the big-ass paws that these dudes are throwing, the ref is going to be more inclined to step in. So for Derek Lewis, we need to see that prison Derek Lewis, baby. That Derek Lewis that was locked up in New Orleans, he right after he got out of jail, came straight into the UFC and won 10, 11 fights in a row. That's the Derek Lewis we need to see. I understand that he's at the tail end of his career. I understand that most of the times he's just fighting to get his $150,000 that he's guaranteed for showing up. This is a very winnable fight, bro. This is not a top.
That's a hell of a payday.
This is not a top 5 heavyweight. This is not even a top 10 heavyweight. This is a heavyweight that Derek Lewis has to beat. He's an underdog here, but I expect a knockout. Derek Lewis.
So $150,000 just to clock in,
and it might be more, bro. But I mean, he paid his dues, right? He came up. Yeah. He had his legendary interviews. That he's very easy to back by the UFC and the fans, right? He's in a huge market like Houston, where the city's behind him. Pretty much all of Texas fucks with him. When he goes out there and said, Joe Rogan asked him, "Why'd you take your shorts off?" He said, "Because my balls was hot." Like that's the type of stuff that the common fan can relate to. Even the first time UFC watcher, like, yo, who's this guy? Is he a fighter? Is he a comedian? Like, I like this guy. So Derek Lewis, very marketable, unfortunately at the tail end of his career, but he's fighting a guy here, man, that he has way more power than. And I think that he does get the finish here, boys.
All right. Well, shit, man, that was a nice little hour and a half pod for getting the cobwebs out. It was dope. We'll finish up the NFC West some other time, but it was just good to be back, boys. It was tough. Like I mentioned, it was just baseball that was going on, not a lot of sports, but we're back.
We're back. I think it's safe to say we all like the 49ers over 10.5 potentially in this NFC West. So we'll probably be making that bet as we get closer to the season. And like Ron said, we're going to be knocking out these divisional podcasts here as we get closer to the NFL. So what else we got going on? Ron, you mentioned something.
I mean, right here with Energy Inc., there's a collab. As you can see, Roland has one on. Ben has one on. I have it on right now. I don't know if you want me to unveil it or not. Okay. We'll chill. But be on the lookout, man. We're gonna put out some nice stuff that we like to wear. It makes us feel comfortable. It's the style that's going on right now. We like to look good. We like to talk good. We like to look good while we talk about sports, and we want you guys to look good too. So we appreciate all the love. Follow us all on our social medias, man, and great show, boys.
And I love it. And just for the people that are here for fantasy football, because I know when NFL season comes around, our Sunday podcast, we have a lot of fantasy football interaction, a lot of fantasy mailbag. Who should I flex? Who should I bench? So if you're into fantasy football with these division breakdowns, I mean, we're gonna kind of get into those tough questions, right? About would you draft this guy? Are you looking at this guy? Is he just off of your board and you're looking to get value later with this team? You know, like today we talked about Kittle. It doesn't sound like a lot of us are going to be too excited to draft George Kittle this coming year. So maybe you take that with a grain of salt. Maybe you take it as some solid advice, right? But every division, we're going to be talking fantasy football with those teams. I know that's something that can relate to a lot of people. So if you're a fantasy football player, tune into those, man, because it's going to be a little preview. Get you ready for your draft day.
100%, man. We weren't as active on social media last year, but we'll be active a lot more this year. So you can get those questions in and you can ask us or tell us, you know, what you guys think. We're not experts. We know a little bit about a little bit, but if you guys got some tips for us, let us know as well. Follow us on all our socials and thanks, man. It was a hell of a show.
Peace.
Are we out, boys?
Sure.
All right.